Next to 2003, when 22-year-old David Lynch was killed on his way home from a night out in Blanchardstown. 20 years later, his family is still looking for justice.
My name is John McGuinness. I was one of David Lynch's closest friends. Oh, we were only a few years out of school. Life is good. We had great weekends, as anybody in their early 20s would. And that was cut short fairly sharpish at the age of 22 when he was unfortunately killed in a hit and run in Blanchardstown village on Easter Sunday night in 2003. And 20 years later, we miss him as much today as we did then when it happened.
My name is Michelle. I'm David's older sister. We would have been close as a family and grew up in an area where everybody knew everybody. Being a family of 5, everybody knew who the Lynches were. David was just very decent. He was a good lad, a good son, a good brother. He was someone that you could depend on, that you could rely on.
Dave was a big sports fan and played football at a high enough level. He became captain at a very young age. That was in Cordoba Football Club. He was an amateur boxer. He's the type of lad that was good at every sport he did.
He was quite outgoing as well. Like, he had a lot of friends and he enjoyed a laugh. He went on holidays every year with his friends. When he was on holidays, like, he was the one that was jumping off the cliff, or he was the one that was snorkeling or scuba diving or driving mopeds, or, you know, he lived life to the full.
Yes!
Yeah, it was Easter weekend. David had been doing exams. He was training to be an electrician, but he was also studying electronic engineering at night in college. After his exams, he had decided to go out with his friends to celebrate.
We ended up in Blanchardstown village. We headed up to the nightclub. We were in great form that night. What I remember is that myself and David decided, you know, we'd head down to the chipper, get some food. So we left the nightclub early. We got down there, ordered our food, spoke to a few girls. We used to go to scuba in the place. And after a 5-minute chat or so, we headed out on the main road in Blanchardstown village to get a taxi home. Being a bank holiday Sunday, it's quite tough trying to get out of Blanchardstown village. You stood out in the street till you got one, and you hope you were lucky, or you tried to get ahead of the other people that were coming.
Gardaí believe David attempted to flag down a taxi. The investigation indicates a silver-coloured taxi struck David, knocking him to the ground before taking off at speed.
Processing what's going on, and you realise he wasn't getting back up, and he was struggling, and the car had headed off down the road.
Further inquiries suggest a silver car stopped in the road moments after David was knocked down. The driver appeared to be inspecting the vehicle before driving off in the direction of Blanchardstown shopping centre.
And I recall shouting his name a few times, trying to plead with him to get up off the ground. And what seemed like 30 seconds, but it could have been a minute, the guards actually arrived and they attended to him.
A frantic knock came to the door around 3 o'clock in the morning. He said that David had been in an accident.
What I remember the night was I was just in bed and I just heard my mum scream. I'd never heard my mum scream like that.
When we got to the hospital, we were told that there was a massive cloud over his brain and that it wasn't good. It was just like this nightmare that we couldn't wake up from.
For the next few days, we held a vigil in the hospital. His mates and myself, some of his friends came back from Australia, and we had a vigil there all week.
We wanted to give David a fighting chance. He was only 22 years of age, so we were pushing for every chance for him to survive. And it's just, unfortunately, his organs just failed and his heart stopped and he passed away. I think it was around 1:30 that afternoon on the Saturday. There's a massive hole in our family. There has been since David passed away. I'm the same age now as my mum was then, and I couldn't imagine going through what she went through. Like I have children, and to lose a child, it's just unimaginable. My dad and David probably would have been the closest out of all of us. Like, they had the whole connection with sport. He died of a heart attack, but he obviously had a broken heart that never mended either, and was left with a lot of unanswered questions.
I think it's important 20 years on, whether the person that's responsible is listening, or people that person may have confided in. If anybody knows anything, any snippet of information, they should come forward, give it to the authorities, and let's see where it brings us.
Like, it's not going to take away the fact that David's gone, but I think it would certainly help give us that closure that we deserve, give David the justice he deserves.
The fact that you don't know, and you still don't know, it's kind of nearly reliving the same day every year. It'd be nice to have that not lingering over our heads anymore, to remember him as our brother, as opposed to someone who was killed on the street.
Well, Detective Sergeant Mark Murphy now joins us from Blanchardstown Garda Station, and your heart would go out to the Lynches. What a tragedy to befall a family 22 years of age, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely, Sharon. Yeah, the Lynches were a family of 7 at the time. They've lost a son, they've lost a brother, and it's hard to imagine what they've been through over the last number of years, and to pass in such tragic circumstances as well.
Very touching. We know that his memory is still honoured decades on in the area. He's gone, but he's not forgotten, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. David was loved in the community, and in particular at Cardiff Football Club. They've held many an event over the last 20 years in David's memory.
Now, the question of that VT, the one certainly that struck me, is where's the CCTV? Why aren't we much further on in this investigation?
Yeah, of course. I suppose you have to remember it was 20 years ago, and CCTV wasn't as abundant then as it is now. But what I can say is the CCTV that was available at the time, we do have that CCTV footage and we have viewed it. And hopefully with the information we get from tonight's appeal, we can review our CCTV footage going forward if needs be.
Okay, so that's really the appeal to viewers tonight. You have a couple of questions to put to our viewers.
Yeah, we're looking to appeal to a number of people and groups. Primarily want to appeal to the driver. If the driver is still out there, they've been carrying a burden for the last 20 years, but it's not too late and come forward and talk to us now. Secondly, we're conscious the driver may have confided in someone over the last 20 years, maybe a friend, a family, a work colleague. If that person is out there, we'd ask them to come forward and talk to us. And finally, to the Blanchardstown community who've been great to the family over the last 20 years, if anybody out there has information to offer, no matter how small, we'd ask them to come forward and speak to us.
Okay, so we're really putting this story out there again in the hope that you might get the little nugget needed to close this investigation off. We are confident, aren't we, that the driver in question knew that he had struck somebody. This isn't an accidental moving on from the scene of a crime.
Absolutely, yeah. From the witness statements we've taken over the last number of years, we know that the driver slows down on approach to David. We know that witnesses have heard the impact, and we know that the car speeds up then and accelerates away from the scene. Okay. So we're confident the driver did know what happened.
Talk to us about the car.
So the car is described as a silver or grey saloon. More specifically, it's described as a Ford Mondeo. Now, we're satisfied that in 2003, that model of Ford Mondeo being quite a new car, as that model only went into production in late 2000. So the car can't be more than 2 or 3 years old.
Okay, so that may be significant in terms of jogging somebody's memory about who drove that car at the time, potentially. As you say, we're really looking for answers. Michelle, I think in the VT said it, it's not going to bring David back, but it might help.
Yeah, if we can bring some closure to the family and help them in the grieving process even, and any information we get tonight will be of great assistance.
All right, very good. Mark, thank you indeed for that. And if you do have any information that might help this investigation, here's how to get in touch.
You can phone us for free on 1800 40 50 60. Free text crime, followed by information to 50123. If you're in Northern Ireland, call us on 08000 393 393, or wherever you